us a little bit about what's motivated you.
Well, I had a long career in investment banking, something like 20 years, predominantly with Macquarie Bank. And look, I enjoyed a lot of my career there. It was tremendous, but I didn't want to get to the age of 50, 60 and realise that my entire life had been spent in that sector. So I felt that here was an opportunity for me to make a switch, to go into something else, something that maybe had more social utility ultimately. So that's really why I made the transition.
Peter and I have spoken to so many that have made that switch. Is it a hard one?
I don't think it's particularly hard. I mean, I guess I had the luxury of having all those years in in the investment banking world. So I was more financially secure than someone who was at an earlier stage. And I guess people who make the transition earlier are somewhat more courageous than someone like myself, of course. But I think I've stayed within the world of finance, except I've switched to social finance, so I suppose I've kept up the theme. So to that extent, my skills and experience is still being used and is useful.
Well, let's explore that. You've moved to social finance. Now, I guess many people don't know what that is, and I know sometimes you call it impact investing. So what is social finance?
Well, social finance is really that element of funding the not-for-profit world or the social enterprise world that is funding that is not donation or grant money. So historically, I think most of these sorts of enterprises, charities and missions and social enterprises have been funded with grants and donations. But here, what we're trying to do is provide them with capital that has some expectation of it being returned to those providing that capital.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because we've just been talking, we know that many not-for-profits, charities, are doing it quite tough now. Bringing in donations is hard, and they get government grants. But effectively what we're saying is social finance is not an alternative form of revenue, but at least for some of them, an option they might have to increase the amount that they have that they can devote to mission.
Well, that's true. I mean, you've got to remember that for the 700,000 registered not-for-profits in Australia, only a few of them have this, a revenue and the sort of scale that could take this sort of money on. But you're right, I think it's another avenue, another form of funding or debt or equity that they can take on that provides them with capital to carry out what they're trying to do. And I think in certain situations that can then allow them to expand, knowing that they are in a position to repay that ultimately.
How hard or easy is it to find investors who are actually willing to put their money into these social businesses?
Well, that's a good question, and I think that's the thing that we're always seeking out and struggling, because you look at most people who are substantial givers. They may have made a lot of money in the commercial world, and they think about things. They invest their they invest their money for a commercial return, or they give money and without any expectation of it coming back. So here we're looking for people who want to put money into this sector with an expectation of some financial return and a social impact. And increasingly we are drawing people into that sector, and there have been some great examples of that. But it is new. It's a nascent asset class, and at the moment I guess it's probably millions, small, hundreds of thousands, small single-digit millions, not tens of millions or hundreds of millions, of course, of which is the scale of donation and grant money that we see.
So could government do anything to help make it a positive environment for people who may have been philanthropists in the past, may be carrying on with that, but now want to become, if you like, social investors? I
think there could be advantages that the government could provide to this form of funding, and some of them would include tax advantages on the receipt of, for example, if they lend money to these sorts of social enterprises, the interest that they receive could be concessionally taxed rather than fully taxed, and if they don't get their money back because the enterprise is unable to repay, they could get a tax deduction for that loss, which they wouldn't otherwise get under the current tax regime.
And you put those proposals to government?
We have put those to the government. There's been recent Senate inquiries and other state evaluations of the playing field for this form of funding, and so we have provided government with what we think are well-reasoned, well-thought-through propositions there.
Peter and I, in one of our previous programs, talked about the social benefit bonds that the New South Wales government is piloting. What do you think of those?
We think they're a very interesting initiative. I mean, they are emulating in some ways the UK example, which was the pioneer in this field, and we think it's a very interesting idea. And the government have gone out looking for 2 programs around repeat offending and out-of-home care, both in the order of $10 million each. And there's been a great deal of interest provided from the not-for-profit and NGO sector for both of those programs. So we're actively involved in proposals there, and we're looking with much interest to the outcome of that particular tender program.